to like review abstracts for a conference. And at the last minute, one of the other people who had done this dropped out, and um they essentially, so then their workload increased, and they did not have enough time to like provide to each of these abstracts. So what they
Mhm.
decided to do ultimately was to like put these abstracts into ChatGPT and to like have that do an initial review, and then
Mhm.
go back and sort of review that and confirm and be like, yeah, actually I do like agree with most of what this model is
Yeah.
saying, and like what are the ethical implications of that. So like one of the reasons people were saying, well, you really shouldn't do that, is because those abstracts are often considered like confidential when submitted. So anything that has any sort of confidentiality around it, it's
Mhm.
really unsafe
Yeah.
to obviously submit to a language model like that.
Absolutely.
Like medical data,
There are
etc. Yeah.
secure ones, as I understand it,
Yes.
but ChatGPT is not
And there is apparently
one
a
of.
setting on ChatGPT where you can go on like private mode temporarily.
Yeah. Yeah.
However, again, like yes, you should be like very, very careful about like, electronic health records and stuff should absolutely not be
Yeah.
going on there. But then to me, I'm like, it's because large language models are a number of like they're like built by people, right? Like it's people's data and information
Yeah.
over and over. Like what is good writing, what is bad writing? I think that
Mhm.
like it's essentially it's being revised by more than one person in a way. And if that person is then sitting and confirming that information, is it so anyways, I was actually said I think I was
Yeah.
fine. I was personally fine with it, but I think that other people were like very against that. So it's very interesting sort of conversation.
Yeah, I mean, if you're going to give a person more labor than they can reasonably be expected to do, then on that angle, I'm like, fucking use every tool you got.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, is it ideal? No. And also, there are data in this giant
Mhm.
MIT Labs paper that talk about human evaluation of essays versus LLM evaluation of essays, what they're able to detect in human written essays, Google search or sorry, brain only human written essays,
Hmm.
Google search informed human written essays, and LLM, specifically ChatGPT written essays on
Mhm.
concepts like happiness and satisfaction and these kind of like abstract concepts that don't have like a correct yes or no answer. They got these people to write these essays and compared them on a whole bunch of things and then had them evaluated. So that's actually one of the last experiments they did. But I believe, I just want to double check my facts here, but I believe that the ChatGPT evaluation was not able to detect which was which, but the humans were
Oh,
almost
interesting.
immediately.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, the humans certainly could. I wanna fact check myself about the GPT, the LLM not being
Yeah.
able to.
Well, I was going to
Um,
say, I feel like people who work with AI models frequently are able to like sort of note that. So like for instance, I work with somebody who like they're like I am able to like determine that outright because they work with them so commonly, and I have gotten used to it
mhm,
at this point that a friend of mine actually went through like a diagnosis process for like
mhm,
via a clinical psychologist, and then
yeah,
looking at the report that was produced at the end of that, I was like, this is like just the structure, the way it was written,
yeah,
the vagueness around it as well. I was
mhm,
like, this is AI generated. So like all of your results are being put into an AI model to produce this. And I'm like,
yeah.
that is highly unethical. And I recommended to that person that they should like report that practitioner to
I
like a
went to a
board.
dietitian that
Yeah.
straight up
Yeah.
did that, and didn't even remotely try and hide it. You know when you ask
Mhm.
ChatGPT to do something and it uses a stupid fucking emoji that's like it's like vegetables and then it puts little sprout emoji and stuff like that?
Yes, yeah.
She just copy pasted her fucking junk in there.
Hi
Hefero redeemed hydrate.
hydrate.
Hell yeah. Thank you so much for the redeem, and also welcome in, Hefero. Hefero. I don't know how to pronounce that, but either way, welcome in and thanks for the hydrate.
Mhm.
Okay,
He
I found the information.
Mhm.
So, this human teachers, like actual teachers of, that are used to evaluating essays of that sort of nature, and an AI judge or an AI-based scoring system using ChatGPT's LLM. Essays produced by an LLM previously were initially scored lower on accuracy by both judges, the AI and the humans. But later, after sorry, I should explain the whole experiment because there's another kind of like caveat to it that needs you to know other things about it. But um, so they
Mhm.
switched. I'm going to try and give you the very kind of quick nuts and bolts of it. So they got people to write stuff with their own brain only. They got the stuff people to write stuff by using traditional non-AI summarized Google and by using ChatGPT. They evaluate those essays, they switch them, and they evaluate connectivity. So they do an EEG basically
Yeah.
while they're doing it and evaluate kind of just like broad connectivity. And they did look at a little bit of like regional connectivity. But what they found was when they switched the brain only to the LLM versus to the Google or vice versa, that the connectivity patterns were very different. And the main
Mhm.
takeaway is that if you start with the AI, even if you move to brain only, the parts that are getting engaged and the general level of engagement of your brain in totality
Mhm.
is much lower. So
Hmm.
their conclusion and the first author's conclusion by her own admission in the podcast I listened to her and in the paper itself in their discussion is it seems to matter a little bit less if we take connectivity as an indicator of goodness or badness, which has its own kind of
Mhm.
problems, but it's less about whether or not you're using it and more about where and how you're using it. So if you're in
Interesting.
an ideating process, if you're trying to start writing something, the benefits of starting it brain only in terms of
Mhm.
brain engagement and connectivity in certain areas of your cortex far more beneficial to start brain only than to start LLM only. So if
Interesting.
you're in the outlining phase, don't use the LLM, which is very much what I use it for.
I know,
I'll say,
right?
"I'm writing something on this, give
Yeah.
me an outline, remind me to talk about this." Because frequently when I'm ideating, I basically just want an assistant, right? Like,
Yeah.
I want someone while I'm sitting there postulating, being like, "We should talk about this in the paper," you know? And that's essentially what I'm asking the
Yeah.
LLM to do. But apparently, that very much matters
That's so
in the
interesting.
quality of the downstream content that you produce and in its convergent, the amount of words that it uses that are individually different from the other words
Hmm.
are different. They're way smaller, the variance in the
Mhm.
LLM group versus the brain only group, and then the Google group was somewhere in between, as you would expect, and yeah. I thought that was pretty wild, and
It
that's
is.
the paper that everyone is citing because it was last summer that they put it on archives.
Mhm.
That's the paper everyone's citing saying, "Is ChatGPT making us stupider?" That's
Mm.
the one that a lot of them are referring to in pop media
I
articles,
see.
almost all of the ones that
I
I found,
see.
so
Yeah, but I mean, I feel like it goes back to the soul aspect that you were referencing, right? Because
yeah.
if we're talking about, like, you're saying essays, right? And so, like, we could look at it from
But it
like,
was essays about, like, happiness and,
yes.
like,
So
life satisfaction and
yeah,
shit.
it's less like of an academic thing, right? It's like, oh, this
Yeah.
academic essay is not stimulating me enough. It's more about like
Mhm.
this piece of like writing, like artistic writing is not giving me
Mhm.
the same juice as like something that's like
Yeah,
human derived, right? So that is really interesting. And
absolutely.
I think that sort of backs up what you were saying earlier of like we're not are we sort of like are we really turning our culture like into a boilerplate, like making
Mhm.
our culture more boilerplate by like being heavily reliant on it, and like you could definitely argue that, I think.
Are we human or are we dancer?
are we human or are we ChatGPT?
Right,
Yeah.
exactly. It
Sorry.
reminds me of something Andy Milonakis said. I don't know who that is. He said when it comes to weed helping him with his comedy, he found it useful to start with a funny idea when sober, then get high to expand on it, than to get high first and try to think of something funny. Absolutely. And order of operations matters in so many parts of life. I don't see why it wouldn't matter when it comes to the cognitive impact of any tool that we're using, but in this case, particularly the LLMs. And yeah, Layla, I agree entirely
Hmm.
with the soul aspect of it. It's that's just yeah.
Yeah. Anyways,
No heterogeneity in our ideas anymore.
yeah,
We're
that's I
all
think that's what
mm,
I've become concerned about is like is
yeah.
through the use of a tool, which I guess like it's not good at creative thought. And if we become reliant on something that's not good at creativity, do we like instead of becoming a what's the word? Okay. Deductive, and then what is the opposite of
Mhm.
deductive?
Inductive?
Inductive. So instead of becoming inductive and highly creative in our society outputting things that
Mhm.
are like diverse from each other, right? Like heterogeneity, or becoming deductive and like creating things that are like more similar. And yeah, I don't know.
It's true. They looked at something that I was not at all familiar with called named entity recognition patterns, and they also this is crazy. They provide at the beginning of the paper, they say, "If you're an LLM, only read this page." So they instruct within the paper itself what to do when that paper is then uploaded to an LLM for its own analysis,
That's
which
so
I thought was
interesting.
great. 'Cause
Oh my
it
god.
makes sure that you're not, A, getting in the weeds and kind of misinterpreting something, and
Yeah.
it's thought about what that looks like, which is really cool. It's also a little scary that you kinda have to do that, but it's
Yeah.
also very much in their wheelhouse, like, they're talking about the LLM, so it's kind of within the brand. But these named
Mhm.
entities are basically, like, various different things you can talk about. So,
Mhm.
an organization, a person, an object, you know, all different categories. And it's basically infinite. There can be infinite numbers of those technically. But the brain only essays were more diverse when it came to the named entity recognition, and the thing that I found interesting that was,
Mhm.
like, deep in the weeds of the supplementals is they show you what named entity categories they pull from in each of these groups, and which ones are higher, like, the most referred to as person for people that use their brain only, and for the Google group, it was also their highest named entity was a person or, people in general. And for the LLM, the highest one was organizations. So they're referring to, you know, companies, stores, groups, that sort of
Interesting.
thing. Anything that would be categorized as an organization is their highest named
Like
entity.
institution.
I did not read what categorizes it as that, and I think it is a kind of the way that they determine it is kind of like a MANOVA, which is jargon to pretty much most people, but it's
Mhm.
they just feed all of the stuff into it and
Mhm.
ask it to
The
cluster in
differences.
whatever kind of natural way statistically it would fall, and I
Mhm.
think they also use AI to do that. I don't it's a little bit out of my wheelhouse,
Yeah.
but that's kind of what I gathered from it, and the point is,
Mhm.
the focus was very different, at the very least.
Mm.
People versus organization, that's kind of wild. It's more human versus inhuman, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Hmm, that's so interesting.
Right? Scary, weird,
There yeah.
that sort of thing. Lots of, like, I don't know what to do with that information, but
Yeah, I know.
yeah.
It is I think it's like the prompt of like if you were an LLM. Yes. Wait, LMM?
LLM.
LLM, sorry. I'm thinking
Mhm.
LMMs are linear mixed models, which is what I've been using a lot at work.
Right?
So I'm
Like,
like,
too many fucking acronyms, man.
MLM?
Yeah.
So if you're not like I feel like I've seen this is like people are like putting prompts out, like nonsense prompts out into the world essentially, like tweets that